Hey you guys, good morning. I'm Yalek, and today's video, I have my imitation game. I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm actually going to save it. I'm in really nice shape. Yesterday something happened to me that never happens. My daily reward involved gold on a War Factory day, and that's pretty rare. War Factory and on Thursday and Hammerman attacks on Monday, I tend to have trouble with gold because I don't get op rewards because I hop around. So got extra gold yesterday, that was great, and have gold for reward today plus Hammerman, so we're gonna save that for later this afternoon when I'm hopping around a bit. I'll keep that as a stash of gold. So what I wanted to show you then is, well, two things. First of all, you'll notice in my attack log that these are all player bases going back to yesterday afternoon, early afternoon. Today starts here. This was, all of these are unboosted, I believe. Yeah, they're all unboosted. Actually, there was one NPC base on this list before, and I just destroyed this guy 10 minutes ago, and the NPC base fell off, and it was the only one of all of these attacks that was boosted. So all of these player bases are unboosted, and you will notice that there is not a single fail there. So, not to toot my own horn, by the way, this guy is available until tomorrow, I believe. Today is, what's today's date? Today is the 8th, yes. Oh, I gotta switch task forces. So, I'm gonna do that. And while I do that, I'll leave. Yeah, so the game is still broken. This thing is just way too powerful, and so begins the hopping. The game, this thing is just way too powerful to be able to attack a base and to deal with any one of the nuisance towers, whatever you're running, with either 3 GBE or 9 GBE or even 20 GBE, depending on how many of these guys it takes. The cost goes up by 3 is insane, particularly after, you start a base, you soften it up with some barrage and some artillery, and the cost goes up every time you use those. So the cost to remove towers becomes successively more. Did I say excessively? Successively? I don't even know. I don't listen when I talk either, I guess. The cost keeps going up and up. So after you've used your barrage and artillery, let's say you were running tanks on my base and you wanted to get rid of maybe this boom cannon and this shock launcher, and I have no ice, so you'd probably be able to remove a third thing. So maybe this boom cannon. Now you still have this boom cannon and that shock launcher, and the cost to remove them would be very expensive. Instead, to be able just to throw a long shock on this for 30 seconds and let your tanks wander up and shoot at it for a bit, and then do the same here, and then finally go to regular shocks back here for these two boom cannons together. That's extraordinarily powerful. And so this goes away tomorrow. The tiny shock is done. I believe it said the 9th in the boom box, and that's a good thing because it's way overpowered. So the other thing that I wanted to show you is that I've actually had, that said, I do enjoy blowing stuff up because, let's make something go boom. The other thing that I have wanted to point it out, wow, my God, let me start that sentence over. That was atrocious. The other thing that I wanted to point out about today is that I've actually had a lot of fun with this, being that the tiny shock is overpowered, but I have been able to break out most of my regular troop combinations. There we have HRCZM, and there again, and we got a warrior rush in, and we got another warrior rush in, and just regular RCZM, and I believe this is the same. And then this guy, I went back to the warriors, and that is so much fun for me. I do, with the understanding that tiny shock is way too overpowered, I do love to be able to use my different troop combinations. Don't have an example of heavy Zuka, which I use more in my mid-level account, but I do get chances to use it on this account from time to time. Did a couple days ago. That's fun. Very rarely will I break out the Grenadiers, but sometimes it is called for. But I do use that too, and I use all of these. This is obviously not an offensive combination. This is just for saving gold. But the other 5 here, I do use, and I use frequently enough that it really is necessary for me to keep. Like, I can't save. It's necessary for me to keep these all saved here as such. I can't save HRCZM as its own combo because it would be taking away from. I mean, I do this all the time in ops. I use this pretty frequently, enough that I would want to keep it here, and so on and so on. So to use HRCZM, I go here and then I just modify. Well, it would look like this. Load, and then change that over. I can't just save it as its own combo, which is why actually here the 2 HRCZM hits happen together. And Boika and Hu Flong Pu, which is a hilarious tribute to all of the Chinese players that it's all squiggly lines. They're all over the place. The Chinese love this game. So the 2 HRCZM hits happened there, and then the 2 RCZM hits happen together because it's just more convenient for me to go through, scout the bases beforehand, load up the troops that I want, and then go after those kinds of bases consecutively. So the warrior bases together, the RCZM bases together, and so on. And just very quickly, and again, this is all about, for me, it's all about the strategy of the game, so that's why I enjoy so much being able to use my different troop combinations. I wanted to look at these bases. We'll look at these 2 bases together and just explain very quickly why I thought HRCZM was going to work. I don't believe, nope, this guy had ice, and he has his, this is usually a trigger for me for HRCZM. He has rockets very well spread out around his base. Now his rocket launchers, or his shock launchers, are too close to his rocket launchers, but having them spread out around the base like that with his rockets does make life a little bit more difficult for me. So I'm counting on probably having to eat up a little bit of rocket fire, and definitely a machine gun and a flamethrower on the beach to worry about. So we throw in the boat heavy. Oh, check this out. This is one of the... this is a mistake you see at like on level 43 bases. He left the back of his base wide open. How dumb can you get? Every time I start to feel like I'm getting somewhere in this game, I'm almost at 1200 VP, and I'm a little bit proud of that. Just a little bit, because every time I start to feel like that's a good thing and I've gotten somewhere, I see something like this, which is moronic, and then I realize that I've gotten nowhere at all. Because if I'm at the same level as people who are doing this, and occasionally somebody who still has a green statue, more than one green statue, yeah, I guess there's work to be done. So Mr. Pooh here, look at his base also. Why the HRCZM, why the heavy? He had no ice, so it didn't really matter what I used. A hot pot forward, and I think I can, with no ice, I can generally remove 4 of the range towers pretty safely. So I think the heavy was just in this case because I was going to have the hot pot and some mortars to counter after this front line of one-hitters. That's all RCZM. But this here with the splash damage, and definitely with the hot pot, yeah, so we dropped the heavies out in that direction to let them catch the attention of these things straight away. And then we use a long shock on the hot pot because you're a dirty little bastard. So from there, switch over to the warriors. Now, if I am correct, I was excited when I saw this base, I think. If I am correct, this is the sort of base that originally, I didn't use warriors a year ago. Only maybe in the last 10 months have I started using these guys. And it was a base something like this, except I think the HQ was even more forward. It was closer to the beach. No shield, obviously. You can, right now, actually with the long shock, you can use warriors on shields. I've seen it done, but I'm not boosting, and that's not really, you know, not my thing. But no shield, so that's good. And the mines, to me, now I know I'm going to have to do some scouting for sneaky mines, but the mines, to me, that's pretty easy to clear. This is pretty easy to clear, and then that's it. We just run up and smash things down. The base, I originally started using warriors on, something like this, similar layout, but even easier, and I looked at it, had never used the warriors before, but I was like, you know what? I know enough about these guys to know that this is exactly the sort of situation where someone would be using them against me, like in the past when I had different layouts, and I just had to give it a whirl. And it wasn't pretty. I was in a car, it was moving, not driving, obviously. I think I've told this story before. I was a passenger in the car, going down a back highway, so not a smooth road either, so we're just bouncing around. And still, it just ran up and knocked the HQ down. And that was what convinced me that warriors are fantastic, because if you can do that easily without really even knowing what you're doing, without having to practice, without a stable surface, anything like that, I figured there had to be something there. So very easy to clear the mines. Doesn't have, surprisingly, any hidden mines behind these towers, which is a mistake, even behind this one. So warriors all day long. A couple easy shocks around the HQ. It's made even easier excuse me, by the fact of having, hang on a second, frog in my throat, there we go, made even easier by the fact of having the long shock. So here we go with Chinese squiggles, which for all I know says Hu Flong Fu. I don't know. It drives me even crazier when I see American players. I know people I know are English speakers, or people I know from, you know, I know what country they're from, and I can think of a couple of Americans who use Chinese squiggles for their names. I'm like, come on, don't we have enough of that in this game already? Here again, now this could have read a little differently. We're going to go with warriors. I'm looking at this cluster of mines here, and this cluster of mines here, and thinking, barrage. Very easy to clear those mines, and then he's got some things up near the HQ, but we can use the cheap artillery on those. And we can use the extended shock here. Regular shock. The one thing that might have stopped me from using warriors on this attack is the the three blasters right up on the beach, in particular that one. Blasters on the beach are really bad for bullet. Really bad. When a blaster hits something on the beach, when it comes unshocked, it forgets about its flag, and then it will just, either it'll get chain shocked on the beach and die, like a heavy would just die from being chain shocked by this, or bullet, when he came unshocked, would forget where he was told to go. And so that can be a real annoyance when you look down and your hero is just kind of wandering away from you. So to prevent that, we used a little bit of extra smoke on this one. When possible, I like to one smoke the beach with warriors, like right here in the middle where I'm going to be dropping them. Just 1, 2, 3, just right up in a line. But in this case, we used the 2 because I wanted to make sure to keep bullet, because otherwise this attack is not going to work. So, pretty easy, no shield, default to warriors, and just figure out how to make it work. Same here. Once again, no shield, central HQ. Mines, very easy to deal with. Just have to make sure to look out for the sneaky mines. My base is a great example of that if you ever want to look up my base. I'm really proud of my sneaky mines, and I spent part of my time this morning adjusting them to make them even sneakier. I think we're good to go here. We do have a mine here which we're likely to clip, but not a big deal. Nope, missed it by going to the other side, and there you go. Just figure out your shocks, clear your path, and you're good to go. And then finally, okay, so we have 2 RCCM hits, and why did I choose RCCM for this guy? Chinese Squiggles brother. Okay, we've got a shield. Ice is minimal. Looks like we have 2, which means we can definitely remove 3 of these towers. And you really should have a good idea of that with your GBE, what you're going to be able to accomplish going into a base. And that's going to leave his rocket launcher or shock launchers and his blaster right next to each other, and that's pretty easy to hit with a single shock. Removing that, there's a mortar up front, but we're going to occupy that with critters, and most of the rest of this stuff is one-hitter kind of stuff. By the time we get to the unpleasant things like machine guns and flamethrowers, we'll be pretty well into this base. So I figured I'd go with the rifles and have a bit of extra damage. Don't really need the extra protection of the heavies, and do enjoy having the extra firepower. Got a long shot there on the Doom at the back because the Doom will do splash damage on the rifles. And we just rip right through this. I think I ended up curving around and getting that. On a couple of these, I haven't had the chance. On a couple of these, I've tried to do an around the world or a victory lap, but it's kind of hard when you use critters as much as I do, because the critters you can't control, so they will be working on the HQ while your troops are. I've had the opportunity for my troops to take a lap around an HQ, but I haven't had the time because the critters do end up taking down the HQ. And the other Arcesium attack, and why? Alright, this guy has bigger ice. Looks like 5 back there, at least. And in this case, I know I can shock those two guys together with a conventional shock. If need be, I could use a long shock on this rocket at the back, but it looks like I'm destroying it. And I think so this blaster can also be gotten under a single shock with these two range towers, which I don't like. And then that blaster we can approach with the tiny shock critters out front again to distract things like the mortars there. I'm throwing critters onto a shock mine because I love to do that. That will keep those critters out in front of that machine gun. Doing it again, same thing over there, so where the machine gun will continue to work on them rather than turning its attention to the HQ or to my troops, because the critters get into its blind spot. And yeah, that's that. Long shock is working over there, and that's all there is to it. Walk up and blast, blast. So, I do enjoy the strategy. I love to change things up. That makes me a happy camper. Probably should have a couple more fails. I don't, I mean, it shouldn't be quite that easy, but it is fun to blow things up. That's all I've really got for today. I think I have an op hit to go do, and yeah, I'm out of here. Hope you have a great one. Catch you later.